Standing on this corner in Roseland, we've been stopped 3 times by people asking, has something bad happened again? They don't get used to it. The people here paid the ultimate price, the victims, the family members, but there's also a dollar cost to the violence that we all pay. I'm Robin Robinson. One of the alleged gunmen in the Park shooting had gone through the program, which raised questions from a lot of people, including police, about just how effective it is. An Indiana man adding to the definition of family. He already had 4 children when tragedy struck his family, and 5 other children moved in with him. Good evening, I'm Robin Robinson. The statistics show that Chicago has been making progress in reducing violent crime, but after what happened last night, it sure doesn't feel like it. It's clear gun violence continues to have our city at the tipping point. The police radio communications from Cornell Square Park gave a dramatic inside look into the chaos cops and fire crews faced as they tried to respond to the shooting. He made a fortune and a difference showing the advertising world how to sell to African Americans. Now he's got a new pitch. When Tom Burrell launched his advertising empire in the late 60s, he pioneered the idea that black people are different. They're not just dark-skinned white people. So Burrell says until you stop buying and certainly stop self-inflicting those negative images, that nothing else is going to work. And that's a tall order. In fact, Bobby says that all the other programs that are attempted to help black people lift themselves up are seen as another way of proving their inferiority. Oh, you need our help. So it's pretty controversial. The issues are very complex. The challenge is great. We've talked about all of this way too often before. The violence exploding across the part of the city where I am right now, in the Inglewood neighborhood and on the west side and in Lawndale, particularly violent. The victims have ranged from young children to a 72-year-old woman. They don't have much faith in the idea that more policing is going to be the answer. They don't seem to have much faith in the police. They say it is not a police problem. It is a social problem, and that there needs to be jobs, there needs to be counseling, there needs to be something for these young people to do in the summertime. The University of Chicago professor who co-authored the best-selling book Freakonomics is a pretty smart guy. So he tackled a tough question. Does locking more and more criminals up in prison actually lower crime? His research suggests that it does reduce crime, but even he says it's not the only solution, not even the best one. If it was, it probably would have worked by now. America has the highest number of people behind bars in the world, and adjusted for population, the highest incarceration rate. Running jails is expensive. The Cook County Jail is spending $143 on each inmate each day. With 10,000 inmates, that's more than $1.4 million every day. So the jail looks for efficiencies, like putting more and more inmates into smaller and smaller spaces. But even the county sheriff, the man in charge of the jail, questions whether we are getting our money's worth. Here's Larry Yellen inside the jail. Thanks, Larry. And experts say one of the best ways to keep Cook County Jail and prisons bursting at the seams is to send young people who get in trouble with the law to places like this, a juvenile detention center. Once a kid gets locked up, they enter a system that they often find it very hard to exit from. That's true despite major reforms here at this once notorious facility.
I'm in this atmosphere that I never thought I'd see myself in.
We have accused murderers. We have accused rapists.
You have to also look at the kids themselves as victims.
This is a place for no one to spend their time, not even a second.
But any kid accused of a serious crime in Cook County is almost sure to set foot in here. A place that used to be so bad that a federal judge appointed an outsider to run it 6 years ago as the result of a lawsuit.
That it was as if I'd walked into the gates of hell. Everything was out of control. The kids, the treatment, the care of the kids was absurd.
A patronage pit is how Earl Dunlap describes the juvenile temporary detention center back then.
Even though there were a lot of staff here that were highly suspect and highly questionable, they got here through a political process in Cook County at the time.
JTDC is 3 floors of children.
Teresa Abreu now heads a new executive team at the facility that everyone would like to see empty.
You know, we don't want a kid to touch the juvenile system, because when you touch this system, there's an increased chance that they're going to end up in the adult system, and that's not good for anyone.
The population is down right now, about 250 youth here on this day. It was built to house 450. In the bad old days, there were more than 700 here, mattresses in day rooms and hallways, a baby prison, even though back then, as now, most kids here are only accused.
They're just charged with these crimes. They're not convicted of these crimes. And the average length of stay for kids here is about 21 days. So, you know, we have to kind of assess them while they're here and be able to, do groups and do one-on-one counseling, some other things with them.
Because at this age, a temporary stay can have permanent effect.
People just think they're mini adults, and they're not. Their brain development isn't there. They haven't been taught some of the social things that maybe the majority of people have.
A third of them may need medications.
Counselors meet with residents every day. The intense focus on mental health is the cornerstone of the reform.
A great number of our kids are substance abuse involved. A great many of them may have some personality disorders. The victims of maybe neglect or abuse, physical or verbal, them being, victims in their neighborhood of violence.
So with the correct approach, a number of these at-risk youth are better off here than at home. The residents go to school every day, a Chicago public school on site.
And they keep you motivated instead of being negative all the time in a negative setting.
This teenager has been in the detention center for a year awaiting trial on a murder charge. He says it's really hard being locked up, but he has learned something.
All these young adults are here. They have potential. They can give back to the community. They can give back to somebody else, even though they took something from someone or hurt someone.
It does just a little one. That's a little potato.
Some get to see real fruits of unfamiliar labor, seeing what you get out from what you put into a karma garden.
It look bad, but it's a lot going on up underneath there.
Kind of like people.
Yeah. You never know what's going on the inside.
What's going on inside these walls these days may not seem like law and order or corrections, but make no mistake, the tension is palpable. The rapid response team gets called on every day.
All of the violence in Chicago, we get them here. We have kids come straight off the street or right out of court here with a lot of baggage, a lot of anger, so that it can be at any point a dangerous situation at any point. So those are sharp. They can make shanks, knives.
It is the largest youth detention center in the country. Being too big is just one of the many design flaws.
We had a kid within a matter of 2 minutes rip the whole room down.
The whole ceiling. The ceiling tiles are being replaced at a cost of millions. The doors to the cells have been redesigned, but there are no surveillance cameras. Having multiple floors makes moving residents from place to place a logistical nightmare. More than one observer has said the whole place should be torn down.
And this building is really not meant for what it's being used for. Ideally, you want a setting that's a little more home-like.
While the setting couldn't be more wrong, the programming and the staffing standards are now the envy of the youth corrections industry.
But the quality of staff that we have now is just night and day. I mean, it's not a guard inmate mentality at all. And, if we are not already the best, we are one of the best detention centers that's out there.
But every success story here proves how badly we've failed elsewhere.
But instead of, having the funding of putting a kid in here for $600 a day, is to have a better use of money by trying to get those resources out in the community to better service the kids.
$600 a day. Imagine that being spent on education or intervention. Yet this seems to be what the public cries for when the streets run with blood.
In recent times when there was the big push to kind of get hard on crime, we do see an increase in our population. I think we have to get to the bottom of why are more kids creating crimes and to be able to solve it at that level so that they don't hit a place like this or they don't hit the Cook County Jail.
So in 6 years, the budget has doubled from $26 million to $50 million. The population is cut more than in half, and the feds may be ready to bow out of the Cook County Detention Center by the end of the year. But that puts control with the chief judge of the Cook County Circuit Court, who worries about the will to continue to do right by the kids.
I would be fighting for the kind of funding that those young people need for discipline, yes, but also to get them out of the cycle of violence, to get them out of the cycle of drugs, to get them the mental health that they need. These are our children. We have to treat them like they're our children, disciplining them when they need it, but also providing them with other resources when we know that's really what's at the bottom line of all of this.
This is a Fox 32 News special, Chicago at the Tipping Point.